Hello and welcome to another edition of the MindXpanse media training tutorial. Today we're going to focus on Microsoft Office Word. That's a very popular word processing program. There have been a few changes to it, starting with Microsoft Office 2007. 2010 looks very much the same. There's just a few more features into it that weren't in 2007, and I'll briefly talk about those. So once you open up Word, you're going to see that it's pretty much a visual environment you're looking at, and we have these tabs at the top: Home, Insert, Page Layouts, References, Mailings, Review, and View. We're probably going to focus on the first three tabs for this tutorial because the other ones get into a lot more other items that you probably don't need to necessarily work. We may talk about View a little bit. But you'll see that we've got a plain blinking cursor going on the page, and I changed my settings here so I have a ruler. You'll notice the ruler's here. If I hit ruler, it disappears. If I click ruler again, it comes on. If I was doing something with images, I could do grid lines so I can kind of help line things up a little bit, maybe for some design purposes. Okay, and then the navigation pane would just give me like a navigation within that. So let's take a look at what we have here. We have the clipboard. Now, it used to be you had to actually go into the menu system to find the clipboard and make that active. They've kind of put that here now, so we actually have it. And one of the nice features is we have some different options here. We can keep the source formatting. We can keep this. We can keep that format, which is just text. Or we can go into the options. Oops, sorry about that. We can actually go into the options here of Paste Special, and we can do as HTML in this case, unformatted text, or Unitext code. And that's because I had actually copied something earlier into here. As you saw, the contact MindXpanse, that was actually the text that it was using as a reference for choosing what it wants to do. Okay, so those are the typical things, and of course if I just do a normal paste, I get everything. See how there's a hyperlink to this? I get everything in that. And then the undo buttons are up here. And in addition to this stuff, we can actually customize these up here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So now we have all of our font options here, and our font options are, nicely grouped together for us. So if I want to change my font, which is Calibri by default, and Cambria usually, but Cambria is the one that they're actually using for headings, and Calibri is for body. I've actually gone through and customized mine to be Times New Roman instead of starting with that. But if you open yours up, don't be surprised if you see Cambria or Calibri as you're typing. And I changed my font to 12 from 11, which is by default. Okay. We can also grow our font, and we can shrink our font, much like what we did in 2007. We have the option of doing a sentence case, lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, or we can toggle so we have an uppercase, lowercase grouping in there. So if I put in here the typical hello, if I could type here today, hello world, okay, and I was to just highlight that by left mouse clicking, I could hover over these usually and see what's going on in some instances, but this particular case I can't. So I'm just going to go ahead and click it so you can see what happens. Notice that the first letters now, because they were capital, switched, and the other ones that were lowercase became capital. And I'm just doing Control Z to undo that. And so if I want to do all capitalize each word, nothing's going to happen because it's already capitalized. If I want to do uppercase, it makes every one of the letters uppercase. Lowercase, it'll change everything to lowercase. And then we have the normal sentence text. And notice that it dropped the casing on the second word here to lower from the actual capital. Okay, so those are some quick overviews of that. Now we have bold, italicize, and we have the underline, and we have different options in here for underlining. So I could choose something a little different right from this menu without having to really go into any special menus. Then we have strike through. So if I was to take this word, world, and click the strike through, we'll go ahead and put a line through it, press it again, it'll take it away. Those of you that may need something for math, or you've seen math, I can actually click on this and actually get a subscript. You'll notice that it drops it lower than the actual text itself. I can also do an upper script, okay, and I can also go back to sentence case up here. I should be able to, right? If not, then click that again. Okay. Now, over here we have the ability to make words have a glow option. Glowing is pretty interesting. You really can't see it here because of what it is, so let me just knock this down a few lines so you can actually see what's going on. But if I drop this down and I hover over it, I get these live previews, and these live previews kind of give me an ability to see what it's going to look like ahead of time. You'll notice that the preset ones are here. I also have the ability to go into shadowing, and I can add shadows to it, which may be difficult for you to see. I can also go into outlines, so I can actually change the outline by hovering over these. I can see it. I can do reflections, which will actually kind of see at the bottom as it changes. It'll make a reflection, kind of like if it's sitting on a glass table. And then I have these glows, so I can go in and I can do some glows. So these are all really cool features you can use, and they all have their own place and time to be used. But if you're actually creating something that you were going to distribute, you might want to do that. And of course, then we have the highlight function here. Let's say I picked blue. I can't read it. But then I decided, you know what? I don't want that. A lot of people can't figure out how to get highlight off. It's relatively simple in this version. You just drop this down and say no color. Okay, but make sure that you've actually selected it first. Okay, so let me just do stop highlighting. I'm going to go through here. I'm going to select this. I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to say no color. Okay, before it was in highlight mode when I actually did it, and that wouldn't let me actually select that. So sometimes that stuff will happen. It'll actually catch you off guard. And then we have the ability to go in here and change our font colors, much like what we did a minute ago with the glow options. Okay, and of course we can use any combination of these. Then we have the ability, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to just do this so you can see what's going on. I can actually click in front of here and drop this down and start picking some of these. There's a define new bullet, which would be an entirely different tutorial separate from this, but there's a way to make your own personalized bullets. And then of course I could go over here and do my numberings. So if I was doing outlines, or I wanted to make something stand out with ABC or sub ABC and so forth, notice that it actually indents this for me. When I actually go here, it switches these for me, okay, based on that. And then I can actually make contact lists. So if I was actually going to be doing, you know, a list for something, or headings and so forth, maybe even an outline, an index, something like that, I could use one of these. Then we have the ability to actually, let me increase it first. So I can increase my indent, which pushes it in, and I can decrease it, which pushes it back to the left. Okay, so this one pushes it to the right, basically like tab. This one pushes it to the left. Now that's good in a list when we have a long list, because I can actually take and move that information in and out so it's more easily read. Then there's a sort function, which, you know, isn't really used unless you've got a lot of data. And then there's this hide function. A lot of people will click on the hide function just so they can see where they're at. Like, say for instance, if I went in here and did some kind of a page break, it'll tell me I did a page break. And sometimes people will be in here, they won't see that page break, and they're trying to figure out why nothing fits on the page. You also see I hit enter here. That makes that little arrow. It goes to the left, go to the hook. That means that I actually went and hit enter. So it kind of gives you the idea of that. And of course we have our left justify, our center, our right justify, and then just plain justify, which pretty much evenly distributes your text on the page. Sometimes it'll put huge gaps between your words, so it really depends on what you're doing. And then we have this ability to change our line spacing. By default, it generally will throw us at 1.15. Anybody who's writing research papers these days, for say college, most everything is going to be 2.0. Now notice that looks a little weird right now, so I'm going to actually take the hide function off, and then I'm going to bring this up, and then I'm going to just select all my text. So I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to drop this down, and I'm going to change to 2.0. Now I'm at 120%. If I actually shrink this down to 200, it'll be much smaller, to 100, sorry, and I hit enter. That's double space, believe it or not. Okay, but there is another option in here we have to consider, and that's the spacing that we have before or after words. So sometimes you may need to adjust that, and you can also set these up as defaults as well. Then we have shading. Again, I can actually add shading to it, so I can actually change it and add colors and so forth to it. And then we have the borders and shading. So if I wanted to put borders around it, let's say I want to put a square box, I could do that. Okay, so those are, again, that could be another entire tutorial by itself. Okay, and then we have some of these that are automatically available to us to tell us titles, headings, heading 1, subtitles. If I click the little arrow here, I have a submenu with even more items in it. I can create my own and actually say save it. So if there's something I want to use on a regular basis on my job, I could do that. I could clear the formatting, anything that's on it. So right now all the formatting's off. You'll notice that moved up because I had some formatting on there. Okay, and then I could change my styles by changing the way it looks color-wise and so forth if I have been doing something really special. Okay, and then I have my spacings. Notice if I roll over these, it actually has double built in. Okay, they are all different, so it depends on what you need. And then I have the find and replace. Essentially, find is really good. If I was to click that, I could type in the box, you know, hello is what I'm looking for. See, it's highlighting it for me. But let's say instead of just finding a word in a document, I want to replace it. So I'm going to actually click replace, and I'm going to say find world, and I'm going to say replace with cruel. Okay, and I'm going to say replace. Now that's only going to replace it once, but if I say replace all, it will search the entire document and actually replace it. The really nice thing about that is, let's say you've got a contract that you're using and you have a holding value in there of, say, company name. You can actually say find company name, and that's your find what, and replace it with whatever company name you need, and it'll replace them all throughout your documents. So I went ahead and said replace all. It says it's reached the end. Do you want to continue? Obviously there's no more here, but if I said yes, it would continue searching at the top. Okay, and I can close that to get rid of it. Okay, and then we have the ability to do a select all, select objects, and similar formatting. Okay, so all that falls underneath the first tab. Now underneath insert, we have a lot of items. Okay, and in there we have a cover page, blank page, page breaks. We have a table if I needed to insert tables. I could insert a picture from my hard drive. I could go to Clipboard and insert a picture from Clipboard. And then we have shapes, and underneath here there's some really cool things you can do with this. I like to actually create little characters and so forth using these drawing tools that are available in here. It's actually pretty powerful, and I'll do another tutorial for flyers down the road, and then you'll actually see how some of that stuff can be put to use. Then we have Smart Art, which if I click that, you'll see is really good for like businesses if you're putting something together for a report or a hierarchy of showing how the leadership or management is functioning and so forth. Pyramids if you're doing something for food possibly, pictures and so forth. So there's a lot of options in there. And then we have the ability to insert a chart, which will actually open up Excel, and I can put some values in and do it. One of the new features is in 2010 that wasn't in 2007 is this little guy here. It's called screenshot. So if I actually go down here and we'll go underneath that, and I go here and say I want screen clipping, okay, I can actually come up and do some kind of a clipping like that, and it pulls it right in, which is really cool. Okay, it can be a very useful feature, but notice it's whatever's directly underneath. You can't actually do it in Word itself. Okay, and it likes to jump around, so I have to go back and click on the tab for insert. And by the way, this is called the ribbon up here. It's what they tend to call it because it's a lot of items on it. We could also go and insert a hyperlink in if we were doing some kind of a document or wanted to link to another document outside of this for some more information, like maybe I have a PDF or something that's got something I want somebody to be able to see. And then I can bookmark it. I can cross-reference. My header and footers, they're automatically built in. I personally like to just simply go up in the top and double click, and I get into my header, so I can type what I want manually, double click again outside of that underneath, and if I want to do it down in my footer, I can double click that too. Okay, and sometimes it won't do it till I actually have a second page in there. Okay, so if I go to footer, it's going to want to do that. If I go into here and double click, and now I can get to it because it's actually been detected there's one there basically. The different first page, odd and even and so forth. The different first page is real important for people, again, who are writing papers for college. They need to have a cover page on it, but they don't want a page number on it, which is usually standard. Maybe they need to put a running head if they're doing APA or something. You would check that off, and then the numbering would actually start on the second page, and you wouldn't have it on the next one. But the design tabs will pop up sometimes depending upon what we're doing. I can do headers, footers, I can insert a page number, and I have all kinds of options. Date and time, something called quick parts. I can actually insert different things like the file names, company email address, all that stuff. Anything that's actually been input in at some point. I can insert a picture in my footer, clip art. I can switch to the headers and so forth, and I can change my headers from top to bottoms, and I can click here to close it. Okay. Again, page numbers is here as well if I need to insert it. Text boxes are really cool. They have some pre-formatted ones. Generally, I just select the first one. It will dummy it up. But the nice thing is I can move those around anywhere on the page. So if I'm trying to put something specifically in a location, a text box is probably the way to go. You'll notice that there's some formats that come up here, and then we have the ability for shape fills and the shape outlines. Let's say I don't want a box around it. I can say no outline, for instance, and when I click off, it's not there. Otherwise, if I click off, it's got a square. And of course, if I just type in here, I can actually replace my data in there. Okay, so underneath the Insert tab, we also have the ability to do the quick parts again, and then we have the word art, which is standard in all your words. If I was to cover one of these, it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But I can actually roll over this, and sometimes I can see what it's going to look like, or I just have to click it to see, but it will take that word if I highlight it and convert it into a word art. And then of course under format, I have the ability to change all kinds of things. I can add more lines to it to make it stand out. I can change the weight of the lines and so forth. So there's a lot of cool features in here to play around with. Again, that's an advanced tutorial. I'm just trying to give you the basics of what's going on in here and where to find things. Signature lines, if I have a signature set up somewhere in my email, then I can actually use that. An object, I can insert all kinds of things into here. Anything that's installed on my computer, basically it will actually pull up. Then I can say create from file. I can browse to something. Let's say we were doing something with a chart, and I wanted that chart to actually be linked into the document. I could say link it to the file, so when I make a change in the Excel spreadsheet, for instance, it will update the information in my Word document, as long as they're connected and they're not like separated, on different servers or different computers. Otherwise, I wouldn't check that if I just want to stay static in it. Okay, and then we have the equations. We have the ability to create equations and so forth in here. That's another whole tutorial in itself. Then we have some common symbols: copyright, registered trademarks, infinity, pi, beta, those types of things. Okay, mu, okay, sum. So there's a lot of different things in here that are already pre-built for us, so we don't have to think about it. And then underneath page layouts, we have themes that we can apply to a page. So if I was to go over it, you'll see how the font's kind of changing color on there. Okay, and I can play around with some of these. These again are effects that I could do and so forth. Underneath my margins, I can change them. They give us the half-inch margins all the way around now, pretty much. The 0.5 is not really half, but we think of half. 0.5, and then we have custom margins. If I click on that, I can go in and actually change the top and left, and the gutters usually are 0 unless we're doing something special. And then I can actually tell it I only want to be on this page forward or this whole document. Okay, meaning every page I do. Okay. And then we have the page orientations: portrait, landscape. If I hit landscape, you'll see it widened out. It's now just rotated the paper 90 degrees. And we'll switch that back. And then I can pick the size of paper I'm actually working with. If I was working with legal documents, I'd want to make sure I change that to a legal document that's actually in the list here. Okay, maybe 14, 8.5 by 14. Then I can insert columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and right, and then I can go to more columns, so I have even more control of setting that. And again, that's another whole topic, but it's just that's where it's located. I can do my page breaks here depending upon what I'm doing. If I was making a brochure, then I probably would want to do a column break, so it actually breaks it to the next one at the top. You got to be real careful with those because sometimes it makes things crazy. I can do my line numbers. You'll notice that I've actually got numbers running down every line on here when I turn that on. Don't really need that unless you got a long list of stuff. Hyphenation, automatic or none or manual, so I can control if it breaks a word that's in two parts. Watermarks, I can actually add something in here so it's in the background. It says do not copy, confidential, and I can do a custom one where I can actually type whatever I want to be in there. So if it's a text, I can type it in here, put it, hey, do not copy this, those types of things. And then we have page borders, which we can just click on, and that's going to make a standard square box, and I'll shrink this down so you can see it all. Or I can go to page borders and drop this down and get some artwork that's in here. One of my favorites is, like, if you're doing a Hawaii flyer, is to pick the palm trees, and then it puts that around. And then we can change the indents and the spacing before and after. This is what I was talking about earlier with the double space. You might want to change it to 0. It depends on the settings that somebody tells you. And then we have, this is primarily for pictures. So if I was to insert a clip art, let's see the internet, let's just insert this. By default you can't really do anything with it, so the trick is to go to text wrap and say in front or behind text, and then I can move that anywhere. Okay. And then we have the ability to align, so if I wanted to click on that, I could say align to center, it will actually do that for me. Align to middle, it will actually do that for me. And then I can change my picture's width right here, and I can also crop this picture. So if I only wanted to have just this computer and nothing else really around it, I could do that and then click off of it, and now I've actually took that picture and moved it. And because I put the settings to move it to center, I no longer have the ability to move it where I want. Okay, so I actually went back and turned on the in front of text again. So under that's pretty much it. This is a real quick overview of some of the features in it. Like I said, it's focused on the first 3 tabs. There's a lot more going on. If we drop this down, we have the ability to put things on here that we can actually customize it, things we use on a regular basis. If you like to email documents straight without having to go into your Outlook or another program, you can do that. If you know whatever you're going to print is ready to go, you can do a quick print. So all you got to do is hit print, and it'll pop an icon up here for us. Same thing if I actually undo these check marks. Same thing, spelling and grammar I can put up here, so I can actually click that. You'll notice that the ABC popped up here for spelling, which is also F7. So there's a lot of things we can do in there, and it's all by customization of what you really need it for. But anyway, I hope this helps a little bit. Like I said, this was a real quick overview. And my name's Leith, and until next time, be sure to head over to our main website at MindXpanse Media Training, okay, which is at MindXpanse.com. That's with an X, and hope to see you soon.